Welcome, everyone. All right, I think we can get started. So thanks for joining today's session. My name is Sarah Judd Lamb. I'm the Executive Manager of Policy Development and Research at Carers New South Wales. And I'm pleased to be kicking off this session with you, but passing over very soon to my colleague Lukas to talk you through the first results of the 2024 National Carer Survey. Before we get started today, it's very important that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we're presenting from today, and all of those lands that are represented by those of us joining as attendees today. Where we are in North Sydney is the lands of the Gorogal people, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present, and to all elders past and present represented today, and also to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander carers and communities. And particularly we'll be talking to those communities a bit more today. So before I kick over to Lukas, just wanted to highlight that this session is one of 3 sessions that Carers New South Wales is running this week as part of National Carers Week. So National Carers Week started yesterday, a really important annual celebration to recognise the significant contribution of carers. And we are starting this session to bring you some highlights of the National Carer Survey from 2024. Which officially launched today. So we're very excited to bring you some of the hot off the press data that we've been working very hard to crunch. And Lukas is going to go through some of the great visuals that we've got. And he will give you a rapid overview in this short webinar of what's available. But we will also direct you to the links where you can download the resources that he is referring to. So I'm going to hand over to Lukas in a second, and then he'll present for you, and I'll jump back on at the end and wrap up the session. So pleased to introduce our Manager of Research, Lukas Hofstaetter, who's going to speak you through the survey findings today. Thank you, Lukas.
Thank you, Sarah. Quickly, I'm the Manager Research and Development at Carers New South Wales. Carers New South Wales is the peak non-government organisation for carers in New South Wales. Here's a little bit of information about us. One of our main functions is to do systemic advocacy for carers, and the survey findings, which I'm going to present today, form the backbone of our evidence to have evidence-based systemic advocacy in that state. Who are carers? Most people here would know this, that we're talking about those who provide care and support to family members or friends with a disability, mental illness, drug and or alcohol dependency, a chronic condition, a terminal illness, or to those who are frail due to old age. We do not include paid care workers, formal volunteers, or parents, foster carers, kinship carers in this definition. There's approximately 3 million people who are carers in Australia. That's 11.9% of the population. In New South Wales, there are probably 958,500, according to the latest figures. And those of you who are good in stats and know population numbers and can crunch percentages very quickly will realize that it's also 11.9% of the New South Wales population. So this is a sentence that you will hear very often from me, that the New South Wales numbers are very, very similar to the national numbers in that respect. And I'm very happy to present the first results of the 2024 National Carer Survey, which is a project that Carers New South Wales conducts every 2 years, and it's funded by the New South Wales government. We work together with the care organisations from the other states and territories since the year 2000 to have a biennial, so every 2 years, national overview to better understand what carers do, want, and need. And this survey informs our organizational direction, the support that we provide, and our systemic advocacy for all carers. What's a few words about what we do in this survey. So the survey is designed and tested with care representatives. So there is carer input from the start. We've got an investigator team from all care organizations in Australia, state and territory care organizations in Australia, and 3 universities. Our academic working group comes from the University of New South Wales, the University of Sydney, and the University of Melbourne. We try to do this survey in to be designed to be complementary to other data sources, such as the census and the SDEC. We try not to over-research. We try to really create new and insightful data in areas that are not covered by other data sources. We're a bit unique in the design of the survey in that it runs across care recipients' conditions, it runs across service systems and carers' life stages. So it's not just one snapshot. We try to really be relevant for all carers, because ultimately we, as Carers in New South Wales, represent all carers. The ethics application is approved by by Macquarie University, Sydney. What is a bit of a limitation is that we do convenience sampling, so we don't have like the big service that the Australian Bureau of Statistics does, an easy way to do a population representative survey, statistically speaking. But we collect very rich and diverse data that gives us a lot of insight into the lives of carers. And with the great participation of the carers from New South Wales and all across the country, we managed to get a really good sample size that gives us a good and reliable insight. This is the context in which we situate the survey. So at the heart really is the carer's experience. Like I said, the survey speaks on the one hand to the evidence base that is needed for our advocacy. It speaks to the stakeholder interests and the evidence base for the supports that are provided to carers. It tries to fill gaps in academic research as well, but ultimately it really focuses on the outcomes for carers to improve them overall and be part of what improves the outcomes for carers across New South Wales and Australia. In 2024, we set a specific focus on First Nations carers with a section of the questionnaire dedicated to them. 6 mainly open questions around service experiences and the relationship of culture and care. We also developed a localized engagement and outreach strategy, and we had our First Nation artist, Digria Yiniminkali, design the questionnaire and the collateral around it, so that we got really good feedback about the beauty of the survey materials this year. Our secondary focus was young carers. We had a short module around 5 questions developed on the feedback from young carers on previous surveys, mainly focusing around caring while in school or while doing an apprenticeship, and the effects of the caring role on areas of self and future planning. So here are the final results. From across the nation, 10,096 carers responded, and we are humbled by the great response that we got. It's a plus of 47% compared to 2022. 12% of the carers who responded used the hard copy questionnaire, which was mailed out to members and which could be requested from us. The majority, however, responded online. And the majority indeed were carers with current caring roles, 6.7% of the sample, and this is actually a very important part of the sample, are carers whose caring roles had ended, but who continue to provide us with insights. This is very important because we know that the effects of the caring role can linger and can have after effects for a long time, and we want to know more about that to better support carers after their direct caring role ends. Down here you see the breakdown by state and territory, about 2,000 respondents from New South Wales, which is a great response. As for the demography, as it is the case with carers in general, the majority is female. We've got 82.6% female respondents, 16.7% male, and 0.7% who said they were non-binary, had a different denomination for the gender. We have a highly diverse sample, even beyond gender diversity, with 17% from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and 9% of the overall sample. So the majority of the culturally and linguistically diverse sample speaks a language other than English at home. We had 3.9% respondents who are First Nations carers, and 5% who identify as LGBTQ+. In terms of relationships, most were caring for a child, but that includes adult children, so almost 45%, followed by a bit more than a third caring for a partner or spouse, and about a quarter for a parent or a parent-in-law, with around 12% other caring roles. So what I need to say about this doesn't add up to 100% because carers, of course, can have more than one concurrent caring role, and we find that around 12% of around 20% of the sample, I have to look the number up, sorry, I should have done that before, actually care for more than one person. The highest reported reason, or the most frequent reported reasons for people needing care was a physical disability, followed by mental health. Autism was another very frequent very frequent cause. Chronic health conditions came in at about a third of the sample, and frailty due to aging slightly below that. And the average duration of the caring role in the sample was 12.1 years. So we see that our sample is a bit biased towards long established and long ongoing caring roles. One aspect that we look at specifically and that we really focus on is the inclusion of carers in services and supports, because we know, and it is part of the Care Recognition Acts, both federally and in the states and territories, that carers should be partners in care. The first question that we ask about it, or one of the questions that we ask about in this complex, is whether carers were asked about their own needs when presenting at a service with the person they care for. And we see there is a certain range between aged care, where about 40% of carers say they were asked about their own needs, and this drops for hospitals, where it drops down to about 17% in the national sample. We also ask about whether carers feel that their views count when, and whether their views are taken into account when decisions are made around treatments and therapies. And again, aged care has the highest rate where carers feel included in that respect, with about 60%, and hospitals and mental health services are a bit lower, with about 40%. And this is, like I promised, the overview for New South Wales. New South Wales data is virtually indistinguishable in this regard from the national data. It's always within about 2 percentage points of the national rates. Another aspect that we focus on is how recognized carers feel. We know from the survey that about 1 in 4 carers feel that their caring role is recognized and valued by their community. And about 1 in 8 carers say that they feel that government recognizes their caring role. The highest appreciation they feel they're given by service providers. If you compare these 3 instances, where 42% of carers feel that that their caring role is appreciated and valued. Again, the New South Wales data is very, very similar, a few percentage points up and down, but no significant difference there. In the context of the ongoing cost of living thematic, we decided to ask about whether the basic needs of carers are met. And to be honest, we were quite shocked that basic needs, not everybody has them met and not everybody answers with always. Around 1 in 9 carers say that they don't always have enough food. No, about 1 in 9 carers say they never or only sometimes have enough food to not go hungry. That doesn't include the sometimes category. And 6.1%, that's 1 in 16, say they basically don't have a safe place to live. The other thing that we see from this data is that affordable health services are not a given anymore. That just more than 40% say that their healthcare is always affordable, with admittedly a big part saying most of the time it's affordable, but about 1 in 4 never or only sometimes have access to affordable health services. Again, New South Wales, hardly different in that regard. So it really speaks to the fact that this is a problem all across the nation. Strongly connected is our data on financial experiences of carers. Around 40% of our sample, both in New South Wales and nationally a bit lower in employment, and about 60% are financially stressed. And these, the 40% and the 60%, they can quite strongly overlap. The most frequent experiences of financial stress were that having an overspend, spending more money than they receive, which was a bit more frequent in New South Wales, with about 1/3 coming in saying that they would be unable to raise $2,000 in a week if some important expense came up, say a car repair. That speaks to the really low savings rate of carers. And about 1 in 5, not quite, both nationally and in New South Wales, said that they couldn't pay bills on time in the last 12 months. This, of course, also is closely related to overall well-being, psychological distress, and social isolation. We've got about 54% of respondents who say that they have quite low well-being. That is, on a scale from 0 to 100, is this about 60? So more than half have a well-being score that's considered low, with quite a significant proportion having one that's very low. Around 46%, both nationally and in New South Wales, report high or very high psychological distress on the Kessler 5-item distress scale, which indicates the likely presence of anxiety or depression. And about 60% of carers say they're socially isolated, which we measure through the Hawthorne Friendship Scale, which is quite alarming, but not unprecedented. All these results are quite in line with previous surveys that we did. Now, like I said, one of our focus areas this year was First Nations carers. We got a response of 380 First Nations respondents. That's more than double from 2022 compared to our sample in 2022. Most of them identified as female. The average age was 45 and a half years. And the majority of them were actually living in major cities or in what's called inner regional areas. So quite urban, actually. 41.7% lived on country, which held a great significance to them. In terms of outcomes, a third almost said that they sometimes or never felt that services were culturally safe for them. Their reported rate of well-being is lower than for the survey average. 8.5% said that they never have access to affordable health services, and 7.1% said they never have access to enough food, which is actually quite alarming. We also did a quick analysis of the qualitative responses that we received in the survey, and in addition to contextualizing that with the quantitative results, we arrived sort of at key support needs for First Nations carers. Number one is that services need to be culturally safe, where staff has to have the cultural competency to support First Nations carers appropriately in a way that recognizes their history and their needs, while promoting their dignity and self-determination. The second big area is financial well-being support for First Nations carers, greater recognition in the community, and better and easier access to services for carers and for the people they care. The second focus area, young carers, we had 182 young carers up to the age of 25 years answer to the survey. Again, more than double than in 2022. It is generally quite challenging, and most community organizations will tell you that young people don't fill out surveys anymore. So we're actually quite happy that we got quite a significant response. Again, 70.6% female, so more non-female response than in other cohorts, and the average age is 19 years. 85% of those young carers said that they had a caring role, or had a caring role while they were at school. And of those, just half had teachers or other staff who knew about their caring role, and only 20% received dedicated support due to that caring role while at school. And another interesting question that we ask is how the caring role impacted the life of young carers. And we see a quite strong response to negative impacts on mental health, with more than half saying that their caring role negatively impacts their mental health, but also their plans for the future are heavily impacted by caring at a young age. But also how they see themselves, how they have relationships with their peers, and even their physical health is affected for many young carers. So the key support needs are actually to improve awareness and understanding of young carers in services and schools, flexible support that actually reacts to their individual needs during education, and especially during education, and increased financial support, because we found, again, a lot of needs were related to material aspects of the caring role and acts such as access to technology. So, in conclusion, I stuck to 20 minutes. The 2024 National Carer Survey offers a detailed, highly diverse insights into the lives of carers. We were able to identify specific needs of First Nation carers and young carers specifically. We generally can say there's an ongoing need for better recognition, inclusion, and financial support for carers. Many carers have their basic needs not met, which is quite a significant finding. There's a large gap in affordable healthcare services. Well-being and social connection is consistently low, and psychological distress remains consistently high compared to previous surveys. This was just a snapshot. There's further analysis forthcoming, and a full report will be published in March 2025. Until then, please head to nationalcarersurvey.com.au, where you can download fact sheets that contain all the data and more that I just presented on for national, for each state and territory, a fact sheet with the results for First Nations carers, a fact sheet with the results for young carers, and supplementary information such as the questionnaire, an impact statement that shows where the National Carer Survey data has been used. And if you have any comments or questions that haven't been answered now, we have a short time to answer questions, but we're always happy to receive inquiries around data at research@carersnsw.org.au. Thank you so much. And Sarah, heading back to you around questions.
Yes, thank you, Lucas. So we had a couple of questions. I've sort of addressed both of them briefly, but the last one that we had was, is there comparable surveys to compare carers to the general population, specifically about well-being and social connectedness, as well as financial stress? So I had said, yes, it will be included in the March report, but did you want to speak to that any further?
So we include, so we design our survey so that we can actually draw conclusions to comparisons to the big statistically representative surveys that are done by the ABS, which is the Survey for Disability, Aging and Carers, where the latest results are from 2022, and these results have just been released in July. There is a little bit of well-being data in there. There is data in the census about carers. The census slightly under-identifies carers possibly. But yeah, so there are other surveys out there. Carers Australia recently released their carer wellbeing survey. There's other data there. We're overall quite consistent with that. Yes.
Thanks, Lucas. And I've just added a link in the chat there to a resource that we developed as part of the Carer Knowledge Exchange that outlines all of the other main carer data sources, including the ones that Lucas mentioned. So you may like to look at that. But do stay tuned for our March 2025 report. And in our 2022 report, you can see some of those population comparisons as well. So I don't think we've had any other questions come through. We just had a comment from Alyssa just saying snapshots interesting, maybe not surprising, but stats are important. We would definitely agree. I was asked the other day, was anything surprising? I said, not really, but also the up-to-date and accurate statistics are so important for advocacy. So thanks for that comment, Alyssa. We have a couple more minutes for questions. If anyone has any pressing questions on their mind, feel free to add to the chat. And otherwise, while people do that, I might wrap up the session. But again, until 12:30, feel free to ask a question. I just wanted to bring us back to National Carers Week. So obviously, all this data is so important for National Carers Week. You might see it out and about on social media. Please do share the news about the data with your networks. There's also a lot of other events happening this week. These are just some of the Carers New South Wales events that you may or may not be aware of. We have sessions 2 and 3 of this Lunchtime Learning series available on Wednesday and Friday. And those are on the slide there. If you'd be interested in registering for them, you can find those through the upcoming events page of our website. And then we also have 2 in-person events happening in Redfern tomorrow and Mudgee on Wednesday. So if you're not already registered for those and you're able to make those in person, please do join. And so I think if we go back to your contact slide, Lucas, we also just wanted to wrap up by saying the National Carer Survey is a huge data set. We will be doing lots more analysis and publications, but we really welcome partnerships, collaborations, data requests from any stakeholders. So please do reach out to us if you'd like to know more, and we will be sharing more in the coming weeks and months.